I've got a good feeling about this. Howdy guys, Carla here, and today I'm here to talk a little bit about Solo, a Star Wars story which just came out last weekend. I went to see it on Sunday with my family and it was a pretty good movie. I was actually really excited about it. It was really fun. So what I'm gonna do today is just go a little bit about everything that I liked about it, everything that I didn't like about it, and just my overall feelings about the movie. In a little bit of a review, I guess you would say. I'll try to make it short because I don't feel like I have as much to say about this thing as I do about, like, say, other Star Wars movies, for example. But I do want to state for the record that I liked it. I thought it was fun. It was a really good ride, and I'm still kind of stupefied because I don't know if you guys follow movie news as much as I do, because I'm always on Twitter, I'm always online, so I'm always hearing about stuff that's happening in the movies. And for Solo, let's just say it's been quite a ride since the directors got fired. Lord and Miller got fired, and then they had to like scramble to have Ron Howard take over, and everybody was wondering, were they going to push it to December? Were they going to just scrap it? Were they going to move it to next year or something like that? Everybody was kind of frantic when the news came out that the directors had been fired and they had to go to Ron Howard for him to finish it. And especially when we heard just how much of the movie had to be reshot entirely. Like, people were wondering, are they going to make the May 25th deadline actually? And people were really worried. I was really worried. I remember that day when I heard the news thinking, oh my god, is it April Fool's? Because it feels like this should be an April Fool's joke. It wasn't, and we were very nervous about this thing for a while because we hadn't seen anything of it until like February, which is like 3 months ago or something. So people were rightfully, I think, worried about this movie and what it was going to end up like. And I have to say, having known all of that and having freaked out about all of that throughout the year that went by, I'm super surprised about what this movie turned out to be. Because I don't think, like, had I been Ron Howard, I would have stayed the hell out of this thing, precisely because it was so much that they had to put together after the original directors left. I'm convinced Ron Howard is some kind of wizard. Because this is not the greatest Star Wars movie ever made or anything, but it's a Star Wars movie, and it works. It works pretty well. For everything that they had to go through with this thing, and all the reshoots they had to do, like, Ron Howard basically came in and took over everything, and he had to basically start from scratch. It's a minor miracle that there is a movie at all for us to see. And for it to be a good movie on top of that, it's kind of a huge miracle in that sense. So I just want to talk about that today because I'm really positively impressed by this movie and what it turned out to be after all this drama. So I just want to mention that up the top. By the way, there's gonna be spoilers to this, so you know, I'm not holding back on anything. I'm gonna talk about the ending of the movie and everything else, so if you haven't seen the movie, please go watch it first and then come back, because otherwise you will be spoiled, and I don't want anybody complaining in my mentions about this, so just go watch it. That's it.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
I'm gonna start with the stuff that I liked, the characters. I thought the movie was very well paced. I don't think there was any point that I really felt like it was lagging necessarily. I know a lot of people say the whole, you know, Spice Mine thing wasn't their favorite. I didn't really mind. It was okay. Some sequences went on a little too long, but again, I'm not bothered by it. I think this had the fast pace that you need out of a Han Solo movie, the fast pace that you need out of a summer blockbuster. There's a reason why they decided to stick with May 25th as the release date, and I can see that now. It's because this movie does not feel like a December movie at all. It doesn't. Even when, you know, half the thing happens in the snowy mountains, it never feels like a deeply emotional sort of December type film. Unlike the other Star Wars films that we've seen so far. Rogue One was definitely a December release, and the 2 episodic movies were definitely December releases. This one felt like a summer romp. It felt like a summer blockbuster, and I understand now why they were so adamant to keep it in the release date that they had set. That said, as I can see today, now that the numbers for the box office came out, I don't necessarily think it was the best idea. Like, I can see why they would want it in the summer because of the content of the movie, but at the same time, they should have known it was going to make less money in the summer. I think if they had kept it, if they had pushed it to December, they probably would have made a little bit more money than they did this time around. And I know that Disney's probably a little bit disappointed in it. It's not a flop by any stretch of the imagination. It made like over $100 million on its opening weekend, but it was a holiday weekend. It should have made a little bit more money. I think they were expecting it to make like 140 or something, and it only made like 100 or so, in the low hundreds. So yeah, it's a little bit of a disappointment, and I do think it would have made a lot more money had it been released in December as we originally wanted. But I can sort of understand the logic of putting it in the middle of the summer, because you had this May 25th date, which is a historic date for Star Wars, and on top of that, it's just a very fun, not terribly deep, not terribly emotional summer type film. So I kind of get it. I really love the characters. I know people were doubtful about Alden Ehrenreich. I saw Han in him from the first trailer. Like, just little bits and pieces of it made me feel like he was Han. So I really had no problem with him going in, and he didn't give me any problems during the movie. Like, I thought he was very efficient. He's not exactly the same as Harrison Ford. He doesn't try to imitate Harrison Ford, but I could see a lot of Han in him, and of course that has a lot to do with the writing, because Lawrence Kasdan is one of the writers involved in this, so of course he knows Han better than the world, I would say. And of course he was going to do that. It's not all down to the actor, and I think Alden did a very good job with it. I could definitely see Han in him, and I really, really enjoyed his performance. I thought he was great. Qi'ra! It's interesting because I haven't seen Emilia Clarke in very many things other than Game of Thrones, and she's like so cemented as Daenerys in my mind that I was worried that I would walk into Solo and just see Daenerys the entire time. And I didn't. I think it's a credit to her performance that I actually genuinely she became Qi'ra to me in that sense. Maybe it was, the hair was a different color or whatever, but I would like to think I'm a little bit less superficial than that. I think she did a good job with her performance, and she really was Qi'ra. She made herself different than Daenerys. A lot softer too. I wasn't expecting that. Qi'ra had her badass moments, of course, but I wasn't expecting her to be that soft. So I like that. I think Emilia has good range, so I'm happy with her performance. Qi'ra's never going to be my favorite character of all time, simply because of what I knew she was going to do to Han. I knew that she wasn't going to end on good terms with him going in, because obviously we know Han from episode 4 he doesn't have Qi'ra around. So we knew that she was going to be out of the picture by the end of the movie, and I thought that was fine. So I wasn't really intending to get too emotionally attached to her or anything, but she was good. I liked Qi'ra a lot. I liked her take on Qi'ra a lot, and I liked the subtle things she did to let us know ahead of time that she was going to be distancing herself from Han no matter what. Beckett, I love Woody Harrelson. Beckett felt a little bit like an extension of Haymitch from the Hunger Games, but I guess that's why you get Woody Harrelson, really. I mean, don't get me wrong, Woody is a heck of an actor, But these roles in these blockbuster films, they're all sort of the sneaky, not entirely good mentor type characters. So, I was expecting that since the moment I heard the casting. I would have liked to see more of Beckett reacting to things instead of just being the consummate survivalist. Yes, I know that you're a survivor. I know that you do anything you have to do to survive. That doesn't mean you don't have to care about people. And they made it seem like he cared about Val a lot, but then he kind of gets over it really quickly. And precisely because I know that type of character, and I know that Woody was going to play that type of character, it was kind of obvious that he was going to turn on Han. I don't think they tried nearly enough to make it seem like he wasn't going to turn on him. It was pretty obvious from the beginning. I was expecting him to do that, so yeah, I wish it hadn't been as predictable, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, his role was fairly predictable. As far as his people go, I would have liked to see more of Rio. I kind of liked the dude. I thought he was fun. It's a pity that he died. As far as Val goes, she didn't get nearly enough time to actually make like an impression. Like, even when she kills herself in the explosion, it's like, yeah, okay. I wasn't that attached to her, I guess, and it kind of sucks because Standing Indian is so good. She could have done so much more with that role, really, if she'd been given the chance. Dryden Voss, while I love Paul Bettany, Dryden Voss was kind of eh. He was just kind of your usual mob boss type. He tried to be like cool and nice and stuff, and then in the end he backstabbed you. That's usually what these types of characters do. Chewbacca was the best. Like, Chewbacca, he was so much fun. Like, getting to know how Chewbacca and Han met was one of my favorite parts of the movie, and it made total sense. I loved the way it went about. Like, that entire scene, I loved it. I even loved when Han was trying to speak Chewie's language and everything, and it came out, because they had the subtitles, and it came out like really weird. As somebody who's had to learn to be fluid in a language other than her native language, I understand that predicament, and I found it super funny. And just, you could start to see the bond between the two of them form, and I thought that was very well done. You could see why they were friends, and you could see why they were so tight then later on in episode 4, etc. I definitely, it was one of my favorite parts of the movie, just the entire thing with Chewie and the bond between them. You could definitely see it flourishing on screen, and I thought that was really great. As far as Lando goes, I don't think there was one person in the world who ever had anything to say against Donald Glover being cast as Lando. Everybody, it was like met with universal praise when that decision was announced, and we were alright, guys. Donald is the perfect Lando, the perfect young Lando. Not to say anything against Billy D. Williams, of course, he was great as Lando, but as young Lando, Donald Glover has no comparison. He was perfect. I think he streamlined more his performance towards that of Billy D. Williams than Alden did to Harrison Ford. They had different takes on it, but I just kind of think that Donald Glover and Billy D. Williams are probably kind of like the same person. Maybe Donald just flew, from the future, from the past or something. Like, I literally think they're just kind of the same person, and that's why it worked out so well, because Donald Glover just became Lando. Like, I have a hard time thinking of Billy D. Williams these days, because Donald Glover just took over that character so well. He was so great, he was so perfect, and you can see that side of him as the scoundrel, but you can also see that side of him that just, it's so cool, and you kind of want to be friends with him forever, because he's just so great, even though he's a scoundrel and he cheats at cards. But I thought it was really great. It was super cool to see how the Millennium Falcon just became so beaten up the entire time. I was laughing because it's like, yeah, Lando had it so like prim and proper and clean and streamlined, and then Han just comes in the very first time he has control of the Falcon, and it just goes to pieces. It was so funny. Let me talk about L3 for a moment, because I really loved L3, and I know I have seen reviews of people who didn't like her, who thought she might be sort of like a Jar Jar Binks type character. I cannot agree with them any less. L3 was one of my favorite parts of this movie. I thought she was great. I really, maybe you just have to be a woman or something, but I really totally got her plight. I understood what she was going for. I understood, you know, her intensity about her cause, and I thought that was really great, and I thought it made a lot of sense, and it actually makes you think a lot, that it makes you think that it's a lot deeper than Star Wars usually goes into this kind of things, because yeah, I mean, we all love 3PO, and we all love R2, and we all love BB-8, and we, you know, even in Rogue One, they made you feel for the droids, and we feel for these droids, even though they get like trampled on and destroyed half the time, we feel for them as if they were people. So if we connect with them as if they were people, why do we treat them as not people? You know, like they become sentient in their own way. They develop their own personalities, and yet they're treated like pets, like robots, like trash that doesn't really matter half the time. And I think that and L3's plight for robot or droid liberation made a lot of sense in that context, because of course, you know, if you can feel that your droid is a part of your family, why don't they have rights as all humans do? Even though they're not human, they're not organic, but they have lives of their own, they have personalities of their own, they can be beings, they're sentient beings. So why are they not treated as such? And it's not something that Star Wars usually delves into, and that's why I like where they went with it with L3, and I thought that was great. And I thought it was emphasized by the way she went. You know what I mean? That Lando actually loved her so much as a friend that it emphasized that feeling of sadness that he got when she passed, when she was destroyed. And I thought that was great. I loved L3. I loved the little details about her, like she even walked like a woman. You know, her hips swung, and I thought that was really great. Like every time she was on screen, I was like, yeah, that's definitely a female robot. So, you know, I really liked that. I liked everything about L3. She made me tear for her when she was rescuing, liberating all the robots in the mine. I was cheering for her. I generally, I guess, maybe you have to be a woman to really get it, but I thought she was delightful. I really loved her. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge did a great job with her. So, yeah, definitely another droid we have to look forward to. As far as the story itself, I think it was a very superficial story. It never really went in too deep into things, but I think it's because so many things were happening. So much was happening that you just had to keep moving, and that's why it never delved so much into things like the grieving. I think Lando did a good job with it for L3, but I think Beckett didn't do a good job of it for Val and for Rio. Like, he doesn't seem to have grieved at all. He doesn't seem to have even cared much of it at all. So, you know. And there are things in this movie that I didn't like. I think it took Han a little bit too superficially sometimes. Like, for example, Han spends 3 years in the Imperial Army because he wants to become a pilot, of course. He spends 3 years in the Imperial Army, basically just trying to get back to Qi'ra, trying to get back to Corellia, and he doesn't seem to have changed much at all in those 3 years. Like, I would think that being part of an army would change you somehow. And I think that this has a lot to do with the fact that I have read Lost Stars, which is a Claudia Gray book in the Star Wars canon, where they deal with this kind of stuff and how people change when they become a part of the Imperial Army. And I just felt those 3 years went by and Han was still the same Han. He still had this exact same motivation. He was still trying to get back to Qi'ra, and I'm like, you don't think Qi'ra will have changed in those 3 years? Like, I would have thought that he would have had more of a reason to want to leave than just, I want to get back to Qi'ra. Also, why did he even need to join the Imperial Army if he wanted to be a pilot? He could have just swindled his way into getting money for a ship of his own. And again, this is the background of Lost Stars in the back of my mind the whole time. I understand that the best pilots in the galaxy join the Imperial Army because that's how they make their name, in a sense. That's how they learn the best tricks, and that's what they do. But obviously Han wasn't cut out for it because he was kicked. They didn't even mention this a lot. They just kind of had like a one throwaway line that says that he got kicked out of the pilot academy. That's why he was a soldier instead. I feel like he just needed a ship. He didn't need to join the army, but they had to kind of throw that in because it was part of Legends that he was at some point. I didn't like it, and I didn't like that it didn't change him at all. You know? I feel like there was very little progression for Han in that part of the movie. And even at the end, there wasn't really much of a progression for Han because everything was so superficial. Another thing that bothered me was that he didn't choose his last name. He didn't like... I understand when Bob Iger said that we were going to learn how Han gets his name, I was like, he's gotta be exaggerating. Like, this is... They're just gonna show how Han becomes Han, not just his actual name. Everybody sort of waved it away. Turns out he was actually kind of telling us the truth, I guess. But I don't mind the fact that his name wasn't Solo, that he was just Han. I don't mind it. It makes sense for me because Qi'ra has no last name either, right? So it makes sense that maybe in Corellia people just don't have last names. I wish he had chosen it himself instead of it just being some random Empire dude just giving him his name. He could have come up with it on his own. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm alone, I don't really have a family. Oh, I know, I'm gonna call myself Solo. Han Solo. I wish I had gone that way. It bothered me a little bit, not enough to like make me hate the movie or anything, but it did bother me a little bit that he didn't even get to choose it himself. Another thing I didn't quite like was Corellia. I mean, it kind of makes sense that it would be this like industrial, you know, dirt-filled place because it was so industrial in a way, because we know that in Corellia they make ships, right? That's what we know from Corellia, from the movies themselves. We know that they make ships. So it makes sense a little bit that it would be this industrial place. I just don't think we saw enough of it for me to make my mind up about what Corellia is like. It's not like Hoth. You think Hoth and you think the entire planet is snowy and stormy and mountains and stuff. You think Scarif, you think beaches. You think Coruscant, you know what Coruscant is like. You think Tatooine, you think sand. Sandy planet. Like the whole planet is like that. In Corellia we see this one area, which I guess is supposed to be like the dark underground type area where they have the syndicates and stuff. And then we see this long bridge connecting it to another place, which to me felt like the industrial area. But we don't see enough about the planet, like everything around that, to really make my mind about what Corellia is supposed to be like. Is it just supposed to be water and these little islands in the middle that are connected by giant bridges? Like, I don't think I saw enough of Corellia to have a mental image of what the planet is supposed to be like, and that kind of made me mad. I wish we could have spent a little bit more time in Corellia, or have Han go back to Corellia at one point, just for me to kind of form a mental picture of what the planet was supposed to be like. But overall, I think those are kind of minor nitpicks for me, at least. The thing that I didn't like the most about this movie was not so much the movie, it was not so much a particular thing that happened or didn't happen in the movie. It was more like the purpose of the movie itself. I feel like what I wanted from this movie was that at the end of the movie I would get to see how Han Solo, young Han Solo, became the Han that we know from episode 4. Someone who was super jaded, someone who was super untrusting, someone who was super, you know, into doing everything for himself and for nobody else. And looking back on the Solo movie, I don't think we got that. And it makes me wonder what the purpose of the movie was, if that wasn't the point. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't see... Yes, Han does learn the lesson from Beckett about not trusting people, but it doesn't feel like he internalized it in this movie, at least. he kills Beckett, which, by the way, one of the things I really loved was the Han shot first scene. In part because it's a reaffirmation that yes, Han did shoot first, and a lot of it is also because whenever I watch a superhero movie or any kind of movie where there's a major villain, I have in the back of my mind the evil overlord list, and the first rule is never tell a hero your plan. And there are so many villains that fail that one simple rule. And you could see that Beckett was going to start talking when Han confronted him at the end. Beckett was just about to start talking and tell him everything he was going to do, and Han shot him before he could. And I cheered because evil overlord list, that's the number one rule. Just shoot. Just shoot first. Don't wait until the villain explains his entire plan. Just shoot him. It's reversed because in the list it's actually the villain who's supposed to not start talking and just shoot. But I like that they didn't give Beckett the chance to start talking and expanding on what his plan was going to be after this. So I really liked it for those two reasons. I thought it was a great scene. The thing with Beckett though is that, first of all, it was entirely predictable that he was going to betray Han. It was really predictable. Second, once he does, Han doesn't even seem that torn up about it. Because it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I learned. The thing is that when he does, Han doesn't even feel very angry about it. It's like, oh, I saw this coming, and even when he kills Beckett, he still feels like he's grieving for him, which is, I didn't want Han grieving for Beckett. I wanted Han to be angry at Beckett. I wanted Han to be angry that he got betrayed and realizing that he can't trust anyone. And I don't feel like Beckett's ending in this movie was like that. And even Qi'ra didn't even really betray him at any point in the movie. They try to make it seem at the end with the switcheroo thing of will she and won't she and will she and won't she, and I didn't really like that. I knew she wasn't gonna when Beckett betrayed him, but the thing is, Qi'ra didn't even betray him at the end. She just sort of pushed him away. She sort of chose power over him, chose taking Dryden Voss's power over taking Han's love. And you could see how that hurt Han, but he didn't seem that angry about it. That's the thing. In the end, it didn't feel like the Han that was going to Lando to win the Millennium Falcon. It didn't feel like the same Han as Han in Episode 4, who was so jaded, who was so against trusting anyone. It didn't feel like Han in this movie learned that lesson. So that was the biggest thing for me that I didn't like in this movie, that it didn't take me straight up until the beginning. And I don't mean timeline-wise, I mean emotionally. It didn't take me to the Han that I came to know and love in Episode 4. So for me, that was the biggest thing, because if you weren't intending to take me to that point, then I didn't need this movie. I wanted to know how Han became that Han, and I didn't get that. So what was the point of this movie then? I do have to mention though, and I should have mentioned this before with the characters, but the whole Enfys Nest thing was weird. I almost wish like they had stuck to one side, like either Enfys is evil or he's never evil. Because it seemed like at the beginning they were really trying to make Enfys evil. He killed Val, or at least he forced Val to kill herself. They killed Rio. Like, his people were savages. They were pirates who were going for the loot and didn't care who else was around and who else they had to get through in order to get it. And then by the end of the movie, we're supposed to be surprised that they're actually the good guys. And I don't like that, because then you freaking killed Val. You killed Rio. Like, am I supposed to assume you're good now? They're supposed to be buddy-buddies with Beckett? They killed his girlfriend! Like, no, I didn't like that. And I also didn't like the reveal of it, because when she first takes off her mask, there's like a moment where everybody's like... And I'm sitting there in the theater thinking, am I supposed to know her from somewhere? Like, is this one of the things that I missed because I don't watch the cartoons or read the books for the most part? Am I supposed to know this person? And it turned out that I wasn't supposed to know this person because nobody knew this person. But then, am I supposed to, like, be surprised that she's a kid? Like, she wasn't even that young. If she had been, like, 7, then maybe I would have been a little bit more surprised. But she was a teenager. And then, you know, they try to pass her off as she's doing this for the rebellion and she's one of the good guys. No, she's not. They forced Val to die, basically. They killed Rio. They're not good people. And even if you tell me that they were doing it for the rebellion, I would rather they keep doing it. Like, if you're willing to kill people in order for the rebellion to be a thing, you know, in order for the rebellion to have the strength that it needs to fight off the Empire, then stick with it. Or at least show me the transition from not to yes. Like with Cassian in Rogue One. He was very militant at the beginning and he learns a lesson in the end. And he understands that you have to be better than that. If you want to beat the Empire, you have to be better than that. But we didn't see that with Emphys. She just takes off her helmet and then suddenly it's like, oh, you're fighting for the good guys. Yes, let's go with it. You know, I didn't like that, and it just felt like a lot of the things in this movie weren't earned. And that's for me the biggest gripe I have with this movie. That said, it was fun. If you don't think about it too much, I had a lot of fun just watching the movie. These are just things that I got home and thought about, and then I went, yeah, they could have done that better. You know, and I think a lot of that has to do more with the writing than anything else. But then again, it's Loras Casson. You don't tell him you're not gonna, you know, you don't tell him you're not gonna film his script. You know, he's the scribe in Star Wars, basically. And who else would have done a better job with Han Solo? That's the thing. I feel a lot of the pitfalls of this movie had a lot to do with the writing, but also you had to make it a fun run. So maybe I give them a pass a little bit because it's a Star Wars story and it's not one of the episodic movies, in the fact that they didn't go as deep as I wanted to. But I had fun. It was a fun movie. I loved seeing Han as a young guy. I loved seeing how he met Chewie. I loved L3. I really liked Qi'ra, and I thought just the entire thing was a very fun run. So if you ask me, did I like this movie? Sure, I liked it. I really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. It's not gonna be in my top movies. It's probably like at the bottom of the list for me as far as Star Wars movies go. But it was fun, and it was good to see a different side of Han. I really enjoyed it. I liked Lando. I had a lot of fun with this movie. It was fun, and it's nothing short of a miracle considering everything this production went through. So I think because of that, I give it a pass on a lot of things that I wish had been done differently. But I enjoyed myself. I liked that this felt like Star Wars. I liked that the characters felt like the characters for the most part. I liked the cameo in the end blew my mind. I was expecting Jabba. Okay, I was expecting Jabba. When Qi'ra said, when it was mentioned that Dryden wasn't working on his own, that he was working for someone, I was so sure it was gonna be Jabba. I didn't know it was going to be Maul. I had no idea. I haven't really seen any of the animated series. I've read some of the books, not all of them. But here's the thing. I knew that Maul was alive. I knew enough about the series, the animated series, to know that he had made an appearance. I knew that he was alive. I wasn't completely blindsided by the fact that he was alive, but I was completely blindsided by the fact that he's now apparently in the syndicates. He's running syndicates, the underground. I did not know that part. I knew that he was around. I thought he was still like fighting people. I didn't know that he actually had made something out of himself in the underworld. So I thought that was really cool. I love that he had the double-sided lightsaber, because nobody was expecting a lightsaber to be ignited in this movie, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I love that they brought him back to movie canon, basically. So I really like that. I had so much fun with this movie. I really liked it. I'm happy that it came out. I'm happy that it got made, even though it didn't exactly lead to where I wanted it to. But I can live with that, especially if they have like sequels. So I would definitely recommend that any Star Wars fan, especially kids. I think this movie must be such a trip for kids that I definitely recommend for everybody to go watch it. And I really enjoyed myself. I had a good time with it, so it was fun. So yeah, that's about everything I wanted to say about Solo. What did you guys think? Let me know in a comment. And also, while you're in there, if you have any topics that you'd like me to see talk about in the future, just drop them in a comment. If it's anything that I have any knowledge about, I'll be sure to add it to my list of videos to make in the future. You can tell me about any topics you want, as long as they're anything geeky, be it books, movies, you know, TV shows, any sort of stuff like that. In the meantime, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you like my stuff, please subscribe to my channel. It always helps me to have people watching and liking and sharing and subscribing. It helps me with those pesky YouTube algorithms. It helps me get the word out there that I'm here and that I'm doing these videos. So please keep on doing that. In the meantime, you can find me on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram at girlsareweird with underscores between the words, and I am on Tumblr at girlsareweird with hyphens between the words. You can find a Facebook page for this vlog at facebook.com/FreakingNarnia. And as usual, you can visit my main website at FreakingNarnia.com. All my videos are up there in case you missed any and want to catch up. Just go in there and it's all up there. Also remember, I have a Redbubble store where I make art based on my favorite quotes from my favorite fandoms, and then you can use that art to print on different types of merchandise, such as t-shirts, coffee cups, computer covers, all sorts of neat stuff in there for you to look at. So please stop by and maybe purchase something if you're in the mood. It really does help me a lot. Also remember, you can find this vlog in podcast form at all the major podcast outlets. Just look for it as Talks from Freaking Narnia and you should be able to find it. I've still got about 30 episodes left to upload, so keep looking back. I will get on it soon enough. And remember, if you want to get those podcasts, these episodes in podcast form as soon as they're posted on YouTube, you just have to support me on my Patreon. Be sure to join. You just have to do it with $1 a month. You can get these episodes as podcasts on the very same day they go up on YouTube. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to check that out and maybe support me as a patron. It really does help me a lot. I don't know what I'm going to be talking about next week. I have a few ideas in mind, but not yet. It might depend on what I'm watching. I'm catching up on my to-watch list on TV, which is like a mile long, so I have a lot of things to get to, but I will definitely have something for you next week, so be sure to check back. And in the meantime, I think that's pretty much everything I had to say for this topic, so I will see you guys next week with another video from all the way in freaking Narnia. See you, Space Cowboy. I don't think they tried to nearly enough to make it, you know, as somebody whose somebody whose native language is not. Maybe you just have to be a woman. Maybe you just have to be a woman or something, but stop that.